something really interesting is happening on YouTube lately. Videos that look like this are getting hundreds of thousands of views. And while most people are editing for weeks and trying to come up with the perfect script, thumbnail, and title, they get ignored by YouTube. But the ugly videos that take 90% less time to make end up going viral. So what are they doing differently? Is there some kind of magic YouTube formula that you're not doing yet? It's actually much simpler than you think, so let me explain. At 1 of 10, we've generated billions of long form views and helped hundreds of small creators blow up on YouTube. And I've personally grown multiple channels with zero editing, minimal effort, and honestly, not that much thought being put into it. And after seeing hundreds of small channels with under 1,000 subscribers blow up on YouTube with seemingly ugly content, we've spotted a really simple pattern that can make your next video a viral outlier or another flop that you just spent way too much time on. And I personally call it the ugly outlier phenomenon. And before I explain the strange trend blowing up small channels, you need to understand the psychology of why ugly videos get views in the first place. You see, YouTube's algorithm and the viewers watching the video don't actually care about the amount of time and effort that you spend into your content. You can spend 5 minutes on a video and YouTube can theoretically give you 1 million views, but you can also spend 5 weeks on a video with the most top tier editing, thumbnail design, script writing, and sound effects, and YouTube can give you 10 views. And this doesn't seem fair, but there's a simple reason behind this. Basically, YouTube is a business and they only get paid if your video keeps people watching. Because unlike streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, or Disney Plus, you don't need to pay a subscription to watch YouTube, and you don't need to be a multi-million-dollar production company to make and host videos on YouTube's platform, which means that YouTube only makes a profit by running ads on your video. In simpler terms, YouTube only shows your video to more viewers if your video is statistically proven to get people interested enough to click and entertained enough to keep them watching. Because the more people that stay and watch your video, the more people they can show ads to, and hence your video makes YouTube money and keeps them in business. Now, I know that this is a lot of information to throw at you and the rabbit hole certainly does go deep, but here's all you need to know. If your videos don't get people to click or watch, YouTube pays you in little views because your video doesn't make them money. But if you make videos that are clickable and entertaining enough to watch, you get paid a lot of views because you make YouTube money. And a good YouTube video is simply just a piece of content that is curiosity inducing enough to click and interesting enough to watch. Time and effort spent making your video doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get the views that you think you deserve. Because at the end of the day, the videos that get the views, attention, and money are the ones that keep people interested. And that's where these ugly outliers print views. Let's compare this ugly video and this cleanly polished video, for example. If you were to hide the view count and the title and just look at these two thumbnails side by side, you would probably guess that this video has way more views. I mean, of course you would. The thumbnail is more polished, the channel has hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and you instantly have an understanding of what the video is about. But when we reveal the title and the view count of these two videos, it's now a completely different story. The video with the arguably uglier thumbnail and video quality beat the cleanly polished video and got way more views. But because the quote-unquote ugly video had a curiosity-inducing idea that stands out from the niche's crowd and instantly makes the viewer understand what the video is about when looking at the thumbnail and title. Simple as that. You see, most small channels on YouTube try to compete with the big fish in their niche by trying their absolute hardest to make the most cleanly polished, super edited video with the best quality that they can manage on their own videos. And they ultimately spend hours of time trying to be better than their competitors, and that's kind of the problem. If you're doing this, it means that you're competing with huge channels that have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on production quality, YouTube strategists, and video editors. And if you're trying to be better than the big fish in your niche, it's kind of like fighting a prime Mike Tyson with a couple months of training at your local boxing fitness class, for example. You're trying to compete with competitors that have infinitely more resources than you do. And it's an uphill battle that rarely ever works. And that's why most small channels waste time making content that nobody watches. And again, this is why these ugly videos are dominating on YouTube right now because they completely stand out from the big channels in their niche and stick out like a sore thumb on the homepage when viewers are scrolling trying to find something to watch. For example, the self-improvement niche on YouTube is filled with people that have huge audiences of millions of subscribers that they already know, like, and trust them enough to click on their videos. So it's easy for these channels to get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views on their videos. And most channels coming up in the self-improvement niche will try and copy their competitors and try to find a way to be better than these big channels that have a whole team around them, which ultimately gets them 0 views because again, it's an uphill battle. But then there's guys like Intellectual Meathead that come around and completely flip the script in the self-improvement niche. He made this one video that's titled How to Ruin Your Life with Self-Improvement, which got over 100,000 views while he has only 20,000 subscribers. And the reason why this ugly video did so well is because the thumbnail completely stands out from the cleanly edited thumbnails that most guys in the self-improvement niche make. Here's another example. In the coding/development space, there are tons of videos with super cleanly edited and polished videos that get millions of views from people with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of subscribers. But then here comes Eric Morrison, who has only 8,000 subscribers, and he outperformed the coding giants in his niche with this one video. And the reason why this ugly video got over 50,000 views was because he calls out the vibe coding mania that's currently going on and gives you a hot take saying that vibe coding is a scam. The idea was genius because vibe coding is super popular at the moment. Lots of people are hopping on the trend, and here he comes calling it out. The thumbnail is super simple, but perfectly conveys the title. Yes, vibe coding is a scam. And this even works in the most competitive niches like gaming, for example. You already know there are a ton of gaming channels with millions of subscribers with a team of top tier talented scriptwriters, editors, and YouTube strategists. But this guy with only 4,000 subscribers made this video and got over 600,000 views simply because the idea itself is dystopian, it's scary, and makes for a really interesting video to watch because it just makes you wonder, why are we going to be playing GTA 6 for 20 years? Like, come on, like, it's crazy. So what does this mean for you, the small channel trying to grow on YouTube with a sea of competitors that have millions of subscribers? Simply put, growing on YouTube was never about how clean your editing is or how many sound effects and visuals that you put in your video. And to be honest, most small channels waste their creative juices spending hours and days on their content, getting little to no views in return because they keep tweaking the editing in their content, the sound effects, the visuals, etc. But what you need to understand is that YouTube is an ideas game, and more importantly, how you package that interesting idea with a clickable thumbnail and title. So if you actually want to grow on YouTube and get your next 1,000 subscribers, for example, here's the very simple game plan. Number 1 is spend 90% of your time on the idea itself. Understand that what gets views on YouTube isn't necessarily the quality of your video, the SEO, or some weird setting that you have to turn on to get hundreds of thousands of views. Getting views on YouTube is as simple as bringing new and novel ideas that you can bring to the table in your respective niche. And this can and is very intimidating because most people feel like every idea has already been done in your niche. But here's a small hack that's gotten small channels millions of views. Simply find videos in other niches that have done very well for the size of their channel and find a way to bend that idea to your own niche. For example, while using 1of10's outlier tool, I found this video that's gotten over 700,000 views with only 5,000 subscribers. So we know this video's idea is a banger. You could simply bend this video's niche, title, and thumbnail into a video about how the Xbox 360 was revived. And boom, you have a video that was proven to work in an adjacent niche that has an infinitely higher chance of getting views. So step number 2 is go back to your old videos and understand why they didn't work and why they didn't get the click in the first place. A lot of small channels think they're not getting views on their content because they're simply shadow banned for whatever reason, but that's not really the case. The only reason why your past videos didn't get the views you thought it would get is simply because the video wasn't curiosity inducing enough for the viewer to click and interesting enough for them to stick around. So a good practice to do with every video that you upload is really just looking at your video from the lens of a completely random person that does not know you, and ask yourself why this person didn't feel compelled enough to click your video in the first place. Write it down on a piece of paper or make a collage on some website or Photoshop and write down bullet points as to why you think people didn't click this video in the first place. This will make you look at your content objectively and force you to get at least 1% better with your next video's idea and packaging. And last but not least, number 3, simply train your brain to find good ideas. I've used 1 of 10 for literally years now. And what I did to train my brain to get better at video ideas that's gained me personally millions of views on YouTube over multiple channels is simply just scrolling through the outliers and bookmarking them into a folder so I can look at them later. That way I have a database of videos that have gotten thousands of views for small channels that I can look back at and study them, and also use them for my own future content by bending the niche, bending the thumbnail, bending the title, and making a completely different idea that's proven to get views for small channels. So for example, I found this guy that got over 200,000 views by a person at the time who had only a few thousand subscribers. I flipped the idea by making a video about Call of Duty Zombies from scratch. My video now has over 500,000 views, and I made over $2,000 in ad revenue from this one idea that I simply flipped. And the best part is that this thumbnail was completely AI, meaning I spent literally 2 minutes coming up with the packaging of this content. So please, don't give up on YouTube, don't feel like you're shadow banned, and don't feel like you're not getting the views that you deserve. What should make you feel motivated is that YouTube doesn't care about editing quality. They care about idea quality. And the best part of this is that the idea of your video usually carries the retention aspect of your content, which means if your video has a banger idea that's proven to work for small channels, that means you will edit less and people will watch for longer because they want to find out more on what happens in your video. Make more ideas, the views will come. See you next time.